You're listening to the SEO Mindset Podcast. Now, we are not your typical how to do SEO podcast. No, we are not. With the help of our guests, we cover those all-important topics around career development, personal growth, and mental health for those working in the SEO industry. You got to be working on your own internal algorithm. Like what we did there. So if you like the sound of our podcast and you think this is a bit of me, shall we crack on with this week's episode?
We've all heard that AI is going to threaten our jobs, but what if AI wasn't the biggest threat? What if the biggest threat was actually losing our ability to think independently? As AI continues to reshape our industry, how do you adapt without losing your confidence, judgment, or even a sense of who you are? This week, I spoke to Jordan Koene, and we looked at AI, career success, all through a lens that was really thought-provoking and at points quite challenging. We moved beyond the technical side of AI and into the field of ethics to explore human skills that really matter. Independent thinking, self-trust, curiosity, and the ability to stay grounded in a world that's changing faster than ever. Now, Jordan is the CEO and co-founder of Previsible, a search and discovery consulting firm. He drives the company's strategy, helping businesses achieve transformative growth by scaling organic search, LLM refinements, all through meaningful innovation. Previously, Jordan was the CEO of Searchmetrics, a leading search and content intelligence platform. He led its expansion into a market-leading SaaS solution, driving US growth and developing data-driven strategies to scale content and search traffic for Fortune 100 companies and agencies. And before that, Jordan was head of SEO at eBay and held key roles at various tech startups. He is also an active investor and advisor to technology-driven companies. But in this episode, we went into the space of, as I said, ethics, faith, what it means to be independent. And he's just given me so many thoughts on how to look at the whole subject of AI differently. But before we listen to the episode, which by the way you're going to love, Sarah and I have a request. If you're enjoying the podcast and it's delivering value to you and you'd like to support us, one way you can do that is by gifting us a one-off donation. These donations go towards the running of the podcast, and you'll find a link in the show notes. And another way to support us is by subscribing to the podcast. That way you will never, ever miss an episode. Right now, settle back and listen to this hugely insightful conversation. It's not just insight that he's given, but he's also finished with some practical advice on navigating the AI landscape, which I know is going to be so beneficial. Enjoy. Hello, Jordan. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Tazmin. Thrilled to be here today.
I'm thrilled as well. We were meant to record a few weeks ago in the middle of the heat wave, and my laptop decided that it did not want to record. So thank you for being patient and letting me rearrange today.
Of course. I think the heat wave is affecting all of us. You know, this global warming phenomenon is finally hitting our devices as much as they are our own communities. So glad that we get to connect, though.
Yeah, well, I said to Jordan that the fan is pointing towards my laptop today. So I'm hot, but my laptop is fine. So we're good to go.
Love it.
Jordan, one of the things that we get time and time again, especially when we do our live podcasts, is that the struggles that people are facing right now in the industry, because nobody can argue that it is changing. It is changing in a way that we knew was coming, but the pace of change has definitely taken so many by surprise. And the industry's response to it as well, and the impact it's having on career progression, uncertainty, well-being, all of that. You've been through so many changes in the industry, through search, through digital, and now AI. And when you see what's happening, what are you feeling? Not just technically, but as a human as well.
I mean, as a human, I think there's a lot of emotions that take place as we see how AI is affecting our work, affecting our habits, our ways of doing things like search, and as well as our communities. And I'd say like there's a range of emotions that take place depending on the circumstance, right? And obviously, there is some excitement and joy that comes with this transformation. And I think it's important to start there because if we don't have some excitement and joy, we're going to lose the whole purpose and the whole drive or motivation to stay current as we see AI take more of a impact in both how consumers discover and the way we do work as SEOs and search marketers. So you have to have some excitement, joy, fun as you're going about this every day. But then there's a lot of other emotions that I see and I feel myself, like fear, anxiety, apprehension, reluctance. Sometimes it's an exhaustion and just a pure like. And I think a lot of folks are at that place right now, just like a pure like sense of like loss because you can't really grasp and catch all of the things that are happening and taking place in the industry. And all of this is natural. I think it's a normal part of having change take place. And whether it be big or small in our lives, you go through this progression or sequence, and not everyone goes through that progression or sequence the same way. But for me myself, like I see the opportunity and the joy and the excitement. I've sensed that fear, and I won't deny it. Like right now, as we're recording this podcast, I'm definitely in a place of exhaustion. Right, like I'm really tired of seeing the AI generated emails that could have been 2 to 3 sentences, but now are 3 paragraphs, and I wasted my time reading all 3 of the paragraphs that was completely unnecessary. And I know that it's AI generated, and I know that a lot of listeners are probably feeling that right now too, right? I'm feeling the exhaustion around the amount of data that we're trying to process and use to create some sort of real justification behind the work we do. And so, yeah, the fatigue factor is in full effect for me at the current moment. But that's not the case for everybody. And I know that this moment shall pass. And I think that's another important component to this is whenever there's not only a industry wide change, but there is a broader uh, global human change taking place today. This is going to take time to truly process and truly utilize as effective humans and contributors to the businesses and communities that we're a part of.
So much of what you have said is resonating, not just for myself, but for people that we speak to, especially last Brighton when we were talking about the efficiency paradox of AI and what it's leading to. And what people were saying is the amount of burnout they were feeling, and how organizations and managers and leaders aren't quite managing to handle this. So you mentioned the change curve. And if something is going to be changing in an organization, then everyone knows, okay, there will be a process, there'll be a curve, and you're equipped, you are aware this is what's going to happen. But when the change is happening outside of the organizations, then it's harder to navigate, right? Because you're not in control. That learning curve is relentless. People feel that they are always behind. It's a tough place to then also find a place for that excitement, because you're right, without that excitement, you're not going to grow, you're not going to see the opportunities, you're not going to give it your all. And that excitement is so important if you're going to stay ahead. So, do you think excitement is the thing that's going to get us through, or are there any other skills that you feel are helping you navigate this phase that might help other people?
It's a great question, Tasmin. I think really the core of excitement and joy around this is what keeps us motivated through the hard times. And we're going to see a continued set of hard times as AI becomes more and more part of our lives. We're going to face both individual decisions that we have to make around our own desires to use and how we use AI. And there's going to be societal ways that this also impacts us and changes the way we go about using it. I think that's what makes this so unique, right? Is that it is a transcendence beyond our core technology capabilities as search marketers, as SEOs, as digital marketers, as CMOs. It goes well beyond just that functional lane, and it goes into how we want to be part of our own societies, homes, and communities. And I think that when you unpack that and you start to really look at what we need to do in order to be successful with AI, we have to go back to our own personal values. And I think this is what's important about where we are at this moment, is that we have a ton of personal values we have to uphold in order to facilitate AI in an effective way in our communities. The other day, I live here in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and I was driving past a billboard that says AI can't change your oil. And then I passed another billboard and it said AI can't fix your air conditioner. And it was really kind of funny because I was laughing at how this local set of businesses is marketing to this very AI forward community in the Bay Area and exemplifying that, hey, these capabilities just aren't there yet with AI. Will AI maybe someday change oil? Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, or it'll do other things that cars need in terms of maintenance or upkeep. But the reality is that transformation doesn't happen all at once. And as a society, as a community, we need to be prepared to lead that transformation. We need to be contributors to how we lead that in our schools, how we want our children to utilize AI, how we want our local cities and our local areas to leverage AI in a way that is meaningful, in a way that is useful, in a way that isn't harmful to the existence of humanity. And I think that's where some of the crux is and some of the challenges, because if you look at a lot of the AI news today, it is about replacing people's jobs. It is about replacing humanity. It is about, you know, the I guess the diminishing value of the human work. And we even have that in the SEO space. Should content be written by AI or by humans? I see contracts today that are sent out to clients saying, we'll write with humans and we'll write with AI. And here's the price difference. And here's the way of working that is different. And that's a very big thing that is happening in terms of transformation with AI.
You mentioned the billboards and the impact on society, and it almost feels as if some of the individuals that are part of the, changing oil and fixing boilers and so on and so forth, it's almost like they're having the laugh now, saying, guess what, I'm okay. We had our flooring change in the house recently, and the floorer finished on Friday, and he said, I have to finish on Friday because on Monday I'm flying to Sri Lanka for a month, and then I'm going to New Zealand to fit floors there. And he literally said, because guess what? AI is not coming to get my job. And this man is able to fly to places that I would like. I haven't been to Sri Lanka. I'd love to go, and New Zealand for that
Right.
matter. And it's really stepping back and asking yourself, what do I want to do with my skills? How do I want to move forward? But the thing that you said about reaching out to communities that are important to you and making sure that AI is being used in a safe way and in a way that is filled with integrity. Because I feel that those people who are skeptical of AI, it's almost like I don't want to know. I'm just going to ignore it. But it's not ignoring it is the answer. It's embracing it, but making sure that you do it in a way that aligns with your own values.
That's right. It has to align with our values, our community's values, our business's values. And I think that that's a real key differentiator from the people who are leveraging AI in a high integrity, in a high utility way, and others who are oftentimes diminishing, I think, the value behind this technology. This technology always has a human behind it. And I think that's what's interesting, right? Like full agentic AI, where it is like working without human intervention. Is there a world where that is coming? Probably. Will we see it in our lifetimes, Tasman? I don't know. I mean, maybe, maybe not. But the reality is that the moment in time that we are at with this technology right now, it is still largely an operation of a human, right? If you look at a lot of the AI startups that are coming out there right now, so many of them are focused on the concept of quality, the concept of reassurances, the concepts of observability. And the reason that these AI startups are focused on those concepts is that they know full well that in order to leverage AI at the scale that any company, any team, any organization, any government wants to use it at, there has to be some effective utility that is defined by a human. That could be uploading certain types of data. That could be building certain MCP systems. That could be creating guidelines and standards and rules. And the reality is that, and there's many, many more examples, by the way. I only gave a few. But the reality is that if we can't realize that today, which is where we are with AI, then we're basically letting the beliefs and the hopes of many of these, oftentimes Silicon Valley CEOs and billionaires and trillionaires dictating the narrative as to what AI is in our own midst. And I think that is an important distinction because we have as much control over what this technology is going to do and how it's going to be used for ourselves in our environment as some CEO of a publicly traded technology conglomerate.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. Okay, so for somebody who is entering the industry now, or at the beginning phases of their career, they want to progress, they want to move up the ladder, they want to do good work. What advice would you give them and organizations as well on how to help them succeed in a way that is aligned with their values? Because what what we needed to succeed 10, 20 years ago is very different from what it is now. And it's not as straightforward as it is now. And I don't think it's been written about as much.
Yeah. I mean, the skills are evolving. There's no question about that. And I think that's one of the taxing parts of this transformation is that we're all having to learn new skills, right? And we're having to adapt our skill set to be able to leverage this technology in a more complete and capable way. And I think that that's a good thing, right? It's a healthy thing because it forces us as humans to continue to learn. And I mean, I've been learning a lot about something I'm not particularly great at, which is organizing all of my digital life, right? Because I want to be more effective in using AI to execute these tasks that I perform on a regular basis. May it be record podcasts, present, write articles, provide, updates to my team and staff in different channels, maybe Slack or email. This is all the activities I do, but in order for those activities to be successful in using AI, I have to organize my stuff. I need to know where my records are. I need to know where my past emails are. I need to know where all of these assets are in order to best utilize AI to execute the next task. And I think that's a really important characteristic or trait that I'm having to get better at. There are other people that I work with that are far more organized and far more capable at building their own digital record and also using AI to organize it for them than I am. And those are skills I am sharpening, right? I think that the skill sets, though, one of the falsehoods about the skill sets that we're trying to evolve on is that they all have to be technical in nature. They don't. I think that's one of the beauties of AI is that AI has given a tremendous amount of power to the individual. AI can design and craft and create things that designers and artists would only do a few years ago. Now anyone can do that. I'm not a great artist. I am not a great designer, but I can certainly use AI to outline what I want, specify it, refine it, clean it up, and prompt my way to an outcome. But that is now a skill I am learning. And I think that's one of the great challenges is that what we're not realizing is that as much as we are evolving our skill set with AI, we're also learning a new path. You still have to be an expert in something in order to get AI to do something for you. You still have to learn SEO in order to be a great operator of AI for SEO. You still have to learn UX and design if you want to use AI to do UX and design work. And so the fundamentals are tremendous value in your ability to execute more effectively. And a lot of people are going to be out there and arguing saying, oh, no, AI can just do that stuff better. Yes, it can. But if you don't have those fundamental skills, if you don't have the building blocks and the capability to learn and adapt new skills over time, your ability to use AI today, where it is today, in a super useful way that's going to give you the results you want, that is going to give you the results that align with your values, is not going to happen. It's just not. And I think that's one of the big misnomers is that AI solves all. It does not. It solves within your capability set. It solves within your knowledge set. And so keep learning, keep challenging yourself, keep evolving your skill set, and you will successfully find ways to make AI part of your journey. That mechanic who wants to change oil will probably use AI at some point. It will become part of the tech stack that exists in every mechanic shop. Some software will come out that'll evaluate cars at a better scale, will make changes, will tell you how to fix X or Y without even having to open the hood. That is coming to every mechanic shop in the world. But today, changing oil is still a very manual process. And learning how to change oil will still be a foundational thing that could help people become better mechanics in an AI electrified world of vehicles. And I think that's one of the things that many of us have lost sight of is the core foundational skills of learning are so critical to successful use of AI.
And through what you just said, what I'm hearing is the things that possibly people were ignoring before and possibly still ignoring now, the importance of self-leadership, the importance of taking ownership of your career, the importance of continuous learning and having a strategy, and treating yourself like my career is my business. I am a business person. I'm an entrepreneur. I need to create my own assets, look after my own assets, as you are saying, know where they are. Because leaving your career to a whim or leaving your career to what your manager guides you through wasn't the answer before, and it certainly isn't the answer now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even Mark Zuckerberg, right? This past couple weeks before we were recording this podcast, a bunch of memorandums and internal documents were leaked about the fact that Meta isn't progressing as fast as they would have hoped post an 8,000 person layoff on their ability to utilize and leverage AI in adoption across the organization, and that they've, kind of had to realize some hiccups in terms of the benefits of having capable, knowledgeable individuals in roles that can fully execute the use of AI versus just letting AI do it. Now, does that change the fact that Meta is super optimistic about AI? No, they're one of the most pioneering companies in developing AI technology. But I think that it stands to show that progression is not as up and to the right as we think it is with AI. There are going to be these ebbs and flows. And as users of AI, every human's going to be a user of AI in some way, shape, or form. We all then have an opportunity to learn, adapt, catch up in some cases in those moments, right? In those moments of acceleration or in those moments of slowdown. It gives us the ability as humans to adapt and evolve and use our brains to really think about how we want to up level, reskill, relearn, adapt in the AI market.
Be really interesting. You've given us so many things to think about there, and it's not your talking about values, talking about integrity, talking about taking ownership and going into our communities. Really interesting discussion. Jordan, it's time for a short break, but after the break, I want to talk about two articles in particular that you've written recently that certainly caught my eye because the angle that you spoke about is something that I certainly not AI generated, and it made me think, and I just wanted to unpack that a little bit for our listeners.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Now, most marketing teams are still optimizing for clicks, but the way people discover brands has already changed. Today, decisions are happening inside AI platforms like ChatGPT, Google's AI overviews, and Gemini, where there's no ranking page, no 10 blue links, and often no click at all. So the question becomes, is your brand showing up when decisions are being made? Previsible helps companies answer that question and, more importantly, act on it. They work with growth teams to understand their visibility across AI platforms, identify where they're being cited or ignored, and build strategies across content, technical SEO, and authority to actually move that presence. Because this isn't just about traffic anymore, it's about influence. If you want to understand how your brand shows up in AI-driven search and where the opportunities are, you can get a clear view in just a few minutes. Simply go to previsible.io or find the link in the show notes. You probably already recognise this voice, but Sarah here. Are you enjoying what me and Tazmin are doing and fancy supporting the podcast? Well, it just so happens that you can. Now, for the same price as a Starbucks, Costa, or your favourite coffee shop coffee, you can give us a one-off tip or a monthly donation. If you fancy doing that, follow the link in the show notes. Why not also help us share the podcast? Get the word out there. Share us with your friends, colleagues, family, anyone who you think would benefit from our podcast.
Jordan, welcome back, and thank you so much for all of your insights on AI, the industry, and what you feel that we can do to harness it in a way that is true to ourselves and also useful for the industry and communities. At the end of the last session, I talked about two pieces that you had written on LinkedIn recently that caught my eye. One was one that you published on Independence Day, where you said independence isn't something that you inherit, it's something that you build. And the other one was the Pope's reaction to AI and humanity. And you spoke about them in angles that I hadn't thought of, really fresh perspective, a lot of grounding, a lot of judgment, and a lot of humanity in it. What led you to write those pieces?
I mean, I think that there's a lot behind the motivation to write those pieces, but the underlying principle that stays true to form in all of those is my genuine belief that humans are at the center of where all of this evolution in technology is going, that we are the writers of the future here. And I think that is an important notion that is often lost to many of us in this AI race. And so, and I don't think this is the first time that humanity has dealt with this. I think the printing press introduced this in a huge way. Electricity did the same change. The democratization of travel through trains and then planes also created these moments of huge inflection for us as humans to really reflect back and think about how this is going to shape our lives. And in both of these, I mean, pieces that I shared, I'm trying to stay true to my personal and professional values around what I believe we can do as humans. And we're the great orchestrators of where things can go. My post on freedom, obviously around the 4th of July here in the US, was really centered around the idea that freedom isn't just something that's given to us. It is not something that just, is handed out. And I think that a lot of my fellow Americans and a lot of, I think, people really think that that's just a right, but it is something that we are evolving and creating. We are the dictators of the change of how freedom is experienced and felt in our societies, in our countries. And it doesn't have to take a revolution or a war to make that change happen. It can happen in a lot smaller, more digestible ways. And of course, as we know, I mean, in the world today, there are various crises over this belief of freedom. And I think that we have to take stock of that as citizens of the world and think about how we want to change the perception of freedom and what the expectations of that should be. And I'd even argue here in America, as we celebrated our 4th of July, I think there's a lot of misconceptions over that. And I think one of the things that I fundamentally believe is that we create our own freedom, but we also have to then live with that, and we have to continue earning it over time. And I don't think that you just make a moment in time of freedom and then you're done. It actually is something that's consistently evolving. It's consistently something that you have to invest in. It's consistently something you have to build trust, authority. You have to build foundational layers that you can gravitate towards as an individual and in your communities. And I think that's why I was motivated to share my post on freedom.
As you said, it's something that is constantly evolving, and there is a responsibility to humanity as well. It's not that I have it, I'm going to wear the badge, and I'm going to forget about anybody else who doesn't have it. I'm going to forget about what that means for me and my contribution. It's, with any privilege comes responsibility.
That is absolutely, I think, the core thesis behind it. I think there's a tremendous amount of responsibility. There's a huge lack of responsibility in a lot of ways around our freedom. I mean, I can speak on behalf of my fellow Americans. I think there is a huge desire for Americans to want to create, for Americans to be innovative, for Americans to build businesses, to help others grow, to help others progress. Even in AI, I see finally a tipping point where we're helping each other and how we're utilizing and evolving the use of AI in our organizations, in our communities, and in our businesses, with our clients. If you're like on an agency side. But the reality is that doesn't stop at that moment, right? You continue to earn that through the decisions you make, through the conversations you have. And I think that's the piece that I think a lot of us have lost on, right? Like, there's a lot of fellow Americans here that want to live on the laurels of the past focus of freedom. But freedom is constantly evolving in society. And there's a reason why here in America we have a constitution that has so many amendments to it, is because those concepts of freedom have evolved over the decades, right? And we've given freedoms to different marginalized groups to have the rights to vote, to have the rights to marry, to have the rights to use and perform and act in their communities in a way that gives them freedom. And I think that's an important concept that a lot of fellow Americans have lost on, and they want to go back. They want to regress to a moment where those freedoms don't exist.
And that's worrying, that's sad. I mean, Sarah and I are going to be covering this in another two-part episode to address some of those situations. But going back to what you said, it's got to be earned, and to keep on having it, you can't then say, oh, I want it, but I don't want so and so to have it. What gives you the right to say that?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, yeah.
Yeah.
And underpinning any constitution, the concept of fairness and justice has to be there.
That's right. And we keep earning it. And that means that people have to speak up, right? Like, there's a huge underlying community here that wants to change the rights to vote and who can vote. right? And we have a constitution that has guaranteed that right to vote to so many different people that have been marginalized earlier in our own constitution, right? And women, individuals that are living communities that are marginalized. These are all individuals who get their one vote. And there's a lot of acts going on in my country right now to change that viewpoint. Right? There are a lot of individuals in my country right now that want to regress the LGBTQ community in their ability and their right to marry. Right? That is a regression on freedom. Right? So we as a community, we as communities have to step up, create a voice, because that freedom is earned. Right? And that is something that we continuously have to earn. And I think that is one of the things that motivated me to create that post. And I think it relates a lot to where we are as a search and marketing community as well, right? Because we all are evolving our skills, and we all have to earn a whole new set of capabilities as we think about how AI, which is the main theme of our show today, is going to impact the way we do our work and how we use it in the communities that we're a part of.
Yeah. And I think there are lots of loud voices that are fueled by ego, and it's time for there to be other loud voices that are fueled by the desire for, like I said, fairness and justice. One person that did speak up recently, and you wrote a brilliant piece about it, is the Pope on AI. You mentioned religion in your post. Again, religion doesn't get spoken about so much. Talk us through what you were trying to do in that writing.
Yeah, first off, I believe in belief, right? I think that us as humans, we need to have a centering point on belief. And I've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of parts of the world. I've been to Buddhist nations, I've been to Muslim nations, and I've gotten to witness and experience these communities and see the value of these religious organizations and institutions, in that many of them are grounded in phenomenal principles that help us as humans, right? They're grounded in principles around family, love, community, fairness, caring. And the reality is that I think that belief is an important part of our ecosystems, of our ethos as individuals, that then lead to the values and principles that we want to live out. And I think that all religions have a great voice in our world to help people be better people. And so, although the Pope wrote this piece on AI, I don't necessarily think that he is alone in his beliefs. And I'm sure there are many other religious leaders that witnessed and read that his piece on and are in agreement and in support of the direction of this. And it's not the first time that the Vatican has released statements around where society and kind of both the political and societal developments are having great impact on humanity. The Vatican has done a similar piece during the Industrial Revolution, over 100 years ago. And reality is that these pieces are here as a point of reflection and a point of support to help us all recenter those beliefs, recenter a lot of the anxiety that we all may be facing. And most importantly, I think, give direction to the beliefs that we have in order to use this evolution in our society in a meaningful and in a useful way. And so what I really loved about the Pope's letter, this ecclesiastical letter that Pope Leo put out, is that it talks a lot about the human value around AI. So he's not here to stipulate that this is a bad or a contorted technology, but it is something that can truly help millions of people, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people have more access and more capability. So there is a level of praise behind the technology, but then there are a collection of warnings and highlights that I think are super important, not too dissimilar to the letter that was produced during the Industrial Revolution around how we use these to impact our lives and what the impact can have both in what our own communities and beliefs might be, but also what is useful for humans long term. Impacts in things like how we want to use this for science, how we want to use this to better manage work, and what is work for humans, and what is a healthy amount of work for people, and can this have a negative impact on us if it is all consuming. The letter also, just briefly here, because I know I'm going on for quite a while here, highlights something that really, I think, centers us on the belief that the human person should be safeguarded at all times when it comes to AI, in that there's a calling for business leaders, for political leaders, to not romanticize the concepts of AI, but keep the integrity of humanity and not create conflict in this. And there's a lot behind that. Think about data protection. Think about our children and how they may be monitored or watched. Think about our own image and likeness, whether it be from a creative standpoint in art or literature, and it being used in a way that is diminishing to the human value of creativity. And so I think that the Pope has done a phenomenal job to help lead us as humans in this AI race.
And there's so much to unpack in that. And, we're not going to be able to talk about all of it in this episode, but even this topic that you just mentioned about creativity, for humans to be able to be creative, their minds need to be still. For their minds to be still, we need to be consuming less. We need to be relying on AI less, so that we are actually getting the chance to be creative. And there doesn't seem to be a recipe that currently that we are building that is going to lead to all of that safeguarding and the maintenance of that, or that protectiveness of that creativity. Just that one small point. Maybe we have another episode just on that one letter, because there's a lot in it. But what I really fascinated me is that level of self-trust that you had in order to be able to write that. Because there'll be lots of people who may have thought it. There might be the newer members of the industry who would not have even dared to write it, because there were some quite thought-provoking messages in that. How do you stay independent and trust your own judgment in an industry that doesn't necessarily reward nonconformity?
It's a really good question, and I think it's one of the most important questions to ask yourself, right? I mean, I am Catholic. I grew up Catholic, so there was a natural gravitation towards this letter. I've got two co-founders who are not, right, and so who are not Catholic, and so the reality is, like, I'm standing up on a pedestal here, presenting something that is of my beliefs, but the remarkable piece of building confidence in your own organization, in your own teams, in your own communities, in your own self-value is that you realize that over time, by practicing your voice, by practicing your message, and that consistently being true to the centered values that you have, those centered beliefs that you have, you create a tremendous amount of confidence and clarity in how you share that information. And I think that second point is the one that most people forget about, is the clarity, right? Because clarity is about communion. It is about communion with the fellow members that you're a part of, right? My message was out to share with the SEO, the digital marketing, the technology leadership community that I am a part of. That's where I was presenting that message. And it is a representation of not just myself, but the company that I am a part of. And so I have to be mindful of that. And in that mindfulness, I have to create clarity in how I present that information. And that's one of the important parts of this, is it does take practice. I'm still not perfect at providing that clarity in every message I give, whether it be to a fellow teammate here at Previsible, whether it be to a public audience, whether that be on LinkedIn or on a stage. I don't do it perfectly every time, but through that practice, I gain both confidence and clarity in how I do that. Most of us focus only on the confidence piece, but the confidence piece is truly only half the recipe. The other half is genuinely clarity. And that clarity comes from knowing yourself, knowing what you stand for, knowing why you stand for that, right? We believe deeply in the genuine value of humanity here at Previsible. And that means a lot in my messaging, right? I want to convey that in my message, and I want to make that a clear component of how we build teams, of how we service our clients, of how we form and organize ourselves over time. And I think that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a value or principle of every other SEO or content marketing or AI discovery agency that's out there, but that is the part that's mine, and I have to represent that for my organization, and I have to convey that confidently and clearly in how I present, whether it be a letter about the Pope or an announcement from Google on how they're, changing their AI data inside of Search Console. Regardless of where that message may be from, that's my focus, and I hope that maybe gives some of our listeners who are still learning how to do that some direction or path, but maybe also some ideas as to how they can go forward in creating their confidence and clarity in their message.
Thank you so much for that, because you answered it in such depth, and that depth stems from self-awareness, knowing who you are, because how can you be independent if you don't know who you are? And if you know who you are and what you stand for, then that trust is what you base that on. You've actually inspired me to write some things. There are a few articles that I have kept on one side and not had the courage to write about, because what fascinates me is where things that faith has prescribed for centuries, and now science that is catching up and saying, oh, actually, it's really good if you do this. And faith has been telling us to do those things for so long, but they've been dismissed as something that isn't important. But actually, it is important. I was born in a Muslim household, but I rediscovered my faith through all sorts of different channels. I didn't grow up in a very religious household, but I have become more religious because it actually makes sense for me and my life and the way I want to lead it. And actually, how it's helping me progress my career because of the practices. Simple things like praying gives you it builds in your meditation without even trying.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, I've not been bold enough to write about those things, but you're inspiring me to do just that. Thank
Please
you.
do it, Tazmin. The world needs more of it, so please do that.
Thank you so much. You've given a lot of richness in this episode. If you were to leave our listeners with one point, what would that be?
Go be bold and confident in what you're doing with AI. Mistakes will be made, right? But if you have that centerpiece to go back and reflect, you will be a much better steward of how AI is going to be used, not just in our industry, not just in our little small world of organic SEO, but in a broader remit of technology and even a bigger remit of our community and even a bigger remit of our world. And so I think if I have a tremendous amount of confidence in the SEO search community, because I do believe that we're going to be great stewards of utilizing AI. And so go build confidently, use confidently, and share that with your fellow peers. I think that's the important piece that we're at in terms of transforming the use of this technology in search.
Thank you so much for today. I've enjoyed recording this with you so much, and that just leaves me to remind our listeners, firstly, that if you're enjoying what Sarah and I are doing and would like to support us, then various ways you can do it. One is to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and you wouldn't have wanted to miss this one. And the other one is to share our episodes, because although it's labeled SEO, the topics we cover can help people in all sorts of professions, especially the digital ones. So share with anyone that's in your world that would benefit. Jordan, thank you so much. And all that leaves is for me to say goodbye to our listeners. And thank you.
Thank you, Tazmin. Pleasure being here.
Search has changed, but most strategies have not. If you're still measuring success purely on rankings and clicks, you're missing where the real decisions are happening. Previsible helps brands understand and grow their visibility across AI platforms, so you're not just present, but you're actually chosen. If you want to see where your brand stands and how to build trust in AI-driven search today, simply visit previsible.io or find the link in the show notes.
Hi, Tazmin here. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Be more visible, earn more, but also take care of your well-being and have work-life harmony? Well, I can help you because I'm offering you a free 30-minute consultancy call. Together we can go through where you want to be and how to get there. Simply click on the link in the show notes, fill in a form, and I'll get back to you.